Welcome back. I've got Jim Fortin on the line. Jim, how are you today?
I'm doing great, and thank you so much for the invite today, Michael. I appreciate it.
Thank you for spending some time with us today because I think what we're going to talk about today is going to open up our eyes and our brains in many ways. So, why don't you share a little bit about you and then we'll jump into the conversation?
Yeah, I've been in my field for 33 years now. I literally are pretty much the leader in the field of subconscious transformation. Not transformation, but subconscious transformation. We all live with this up from the subconscious level, not even knowing that we're doing it. This is science-based, it's proven, etc. We do what we do, and all of us look at our behavior. We do what we do based upon who we are. Now, many times in life, we're not getting the results that we want because we are not that type of person to get those results. So what I help people do, and I've done now for over 3 decades, is learn to rewire their brain and reprogram their subconscious mind against fundamental values, nothing moral, nothing religious, fundamental values of transformation and behavior to help them become the kind of person they need to be to create the outcomes that they want.
I think what's beautiful about that is, the subconscious is, well, from my vantage point anyway, who we really are.
Mhm.
And which is, it's such an interesting dynamic if you think about it. It's like who we really are, and we don't talk with it or we don't connect to it as well as we could. And I think that's where your work comes in, really, really importantly, because uh, we think about this. We talked about this a little bit in the pre-show as well, where your subconscious knows who you are,
Yeah,
and when it comes to your vocation, life, beliefs, habits, patterns, and all of that, that's where they live. And for me, nothing would make me happier than to be fully connected with that so I could be to a fault, who I truly am, both consciously and subconsciously, and have them
right.
sing out of the same hymn book, if you want to use a religious analogy.
Sure.
But but so many of us go through life aimlessly, and we don't know who we are, and we won't look within because we're scared to for some reason.
Can I hop in here really quickly, please?
Of course.
Henry David Thoreau said that most men lead lives of quiet desperation. I look out in the world, I see that every day. We live in a world where in the US we have over a 50% divorce rate, 80% of the population is overweight, 80%, 79% of people in this country are not financially secure. Now let me just talk about why this happens. We learned it from our grandparents, and our great grandparents. I grew up a small town Texas farm boy, and I'm talking really fast because we don't have a lot of time. And what I'm sharing with people can change their lives. So I grew up a small town Texas farm boy. We didn't have any money, very small farming town in Texas. What I heard constantly is we don't have any money. We don't have any money. We're broke. We're poor. We don't have any money. But this can apply to anything in life, relationships, your health, your wealth, anything. So, graduated from college, put myself through college, private school, 4 years, 2 degrees, graduated. And I struggled with money for 10 years after that. I mean, I made money in a corporate job, but I'm like, why? I'm a smart guy. Why can't I become wealthy and rich and successful and all these things that I wanted to be? Well, what I recognized, it was my subconscious identity and my mind at a subconscious level. Aristotle said, give me a man, give me a child till the age of 8, and I will show you the man, meaning the person. We learn to become who we are, which is our identity and our self-image. We live in that self-image like an invisible prison our entire life unless we learn how to change that self-image. My self-image was poor Texas farm boy. So no matter what I did, I struggled and struggled and struggled with making money. Now, what I mean was I made corporate, but I was a just enougher. I mean, just enough money to come in to pay the bills, and then I had like no money again. And I lived that way till my early 30s. I mean this humbly, but today I'm a multimillionaire many times over. I learned that, you know what? I first have to, and this is not rah-rah woo-woo, I have to become wealthy in my mind, but specifically in my subconscious identity, because what we identify with is what we automatically do. This is why it's easy to do what you are and hard to do what you are not. Let me go on here for a second, please. Did you smoke today? No, you didn't smoke a cigarette, right? The
Nope.
reason why is you didn't do the behavior because you don't identify as a smoker. So what you identify with is what you do automatically. And if you identify with being not good enough. People are going to judge me. I'll never be a success. Money is a challenge. All these negativities, if we identify with that and we don't even know that we do because it's subconscious, that's an invisible prison we can't get out of no matter what we do. And that's why I trademarked the phrase be to have. You got to be before you can do, before you can have.
Mm, It's critical to do that. And it reminds me of some of the teachings of the late Jim Rohn. He kind of talked about that. He talked about a lot of different things, but one of the things
Sure.
he chatted about in all the programs that he did was, and this is something that his mentor taught him is like, well, if you want to be a millionaire, well, you have to become a millionaire. And
Yeah.
he wasn't talking about your bank account having, extra commas in it. But no, it was like you have to become the person to
Right.
be that person. And that was a very high level approach. I mean, obviously you're is much deeper than that because it starts working with the subconscious kind of thing. And I think that's really important. And it reminds me, as you were sharing that story, of some programming that I had growing up. My
Mhm.
parents did a fairly good job of kind of shielding us. I mean, we were low middle class, quite frankly, early on
Sure.
in my life, and then things started to improve, and they put me through college, and I did all the stuff, and have had I would define it a successful career, and then left, and reinvented myself again. Why? Because I had the confidence to do it. I was like, well, I've done this, I could do this too. But I
But
have
hang on, you had the identity to do it because so many people, if they grow up with a lot of trauma or chaos in the household, at a subconscious level, they learn that their whole life is about being protected and they've got to hide from people because that's their coping mechanism. So your parents apparently taught you as a kid, pick yourself up, dust yourself off, you can do things. But some people, they want to do things, but at the subconscious level, they're not what I call resourceful because they've learned at a young age that no matter what they do, they're not good enough or things won't work for them. And that's why they can't reinvent, which is what you did or what I did. I'm sorry to interrupt, but I wanted to toss that in.
No, it's very important. And when I talk to, old friends, and or I talk to individuals that I haven't seen in a long time, and I tell them what I'm doing, and they said, "You've done so many different things." And they have in their career path have chosen to, the path that they've chosen, and I'm not judging them. That might be their path and their subconscious and conscious definition of things, but ultimately, for me, it was I had, the interest of learning something different, a little bit of curiosity. And I think that, goes back to just, even my childhood and playing and doing different things and experimenting. I always joke about this. I wasn't good at science, and the only reason I passed science
Yeah.
class was Mr. Burrell did not want to see me again. So I got that C. I ran with it. I am thankful for it. I got a diploma in high school. Thank you so much. And
Yeah.
thankfully, college university didn't require any science class in my program because we were good. But for me now, as I've aged, I have a little bit more interest in that than I did before. And I find that, quite frankly, interesting for me. The things that I had zero interest in before, now I'm intrigued by and I'm interested by. And I'm curious as to, from your vantage point, why would I be interested in things that I was never interested in before?
Because you had the foundation of being, and I have to go back here to something you said. You had the foundation of a curious being, meaning when you were 2, 3, 4, 5 years old, when you were developing your sense of identity and sense of self, your parents in some way didn't punish you, or they actually reinforced and encouraged you to be curious and to explore. Now, we forget about that as we get older, but that is always in us. Let me give you an example. You talked about Mr. Burrell. When I was in first grade, my teacher, Mrs. Schilling, I remember this, walked up to me in first grade, 1971, put a paper in front of me, and she looked at me in a very disapproving way and said, Jimmy, uh, that's what she called me in grade school. She goes, Jimmy, you're not very good at math. And I got a D. Notice what she said, you're not very good at math. Now, I was a straight A student all the way through high school and even into college. But in high school, I was a straight A student in every single subject, but I struggled badly in math. They even wanted to put me in a remedial math class because I made A's in everything else and I was making D's in math. When I was a sophomore, we hosted a Japanese exchange student, and she helped that culture at that time. It was more scientifically advanced and mathematically and et cetera. I made the highest grade in my geometry class that year in high school. Now, the point is that I learned at a subconscious level when Mrs. Schilling said, you were bad at math, I accepted that subconsciously. As a kid, you cannot analyze till you're about 8 years old. So whatever you say to a child goes right to the subconscious mind like it goes into a holding receptacle. So she laid the foundation. You're not good at math. I accepted it and I struggled with math until 10th grade. And then I busted that belief that I'm bad at math. So we all live in these paradigms like your cell phone right now has got a battery running in the background, but we don't think about the battery running, but it's always running as long as your cell phone is charged. Whatever your identity is, it's always running in the background. But part of your identity, which very successful people have that identity, is being curious about things. And I've coached, I only one to one, which I don't do a whole lot of, I do group coaching. One to one, I only coach millionaires. The reason, why do you think that is? Just curious.
Because they have had how do I want to phrase this? They've had the drive and tenacity to know that, okay, they've reached this level and they know that's not the level that they're supposed to stay at. They want to grow. They're hungry. Just like you see pro athletes and other leaders that are really successful and launch several businesses. Why? Because there's something in there that they want to do. Sometimes it could be they're never satisfied, which is another arena.
Right.
But in many cases, they're like, okay, I I'm here and I want to stay here. Maybe there's an element of fear of them losing it. I don't know. It could be. I'm sure there's been people that you've run into that are really successful that are afraid that the rug's going to get pulled out and, their self-confidence issues and all of that are in there. But I'm curious what's the response?
When you work with people that have not made $1 million, which is not a lot of money this day and age, it's just this marker we have as people, but it's not a lot of money. Here's the thing. When I work with people that are millionaires and they've made 2, 3, 4, 5, 8 million a year, when I say, okay, here's what we got to do. You got to do A, B, C, and D. Okay, Jim, boom, I'll do it. I've taken people from 2 million a year to 10 million a year in 18 months. But people that are struggling with money at the $100,000 range or $200,000 range will be, no, I can't do that. Let me tell you why. Reason number one, number two, number three, number four, number five. And I'm afraid people are going to judge me. I'm afraid I'm going to fail. I'm afraid if I'm more successful than my father, he's going to judge me and that I'm going to be better than him and they're going to reject me. It's a whole different mentality when you make money as opposed to when you don't have money. And it's all coming from the identity. So we have to always go back to who am I being? And being is called a characteristic, a way of being. We can be committed, we can be angry, we can be happy, we can be sad, we can be disciplined, we can be a visionary. There are many ways to be, but how you be will determine what you do. And I have to say this here to demonstrate, no question, the power of identity. Look at the world and look at the US right now. It is divided like never before. And you have people that identify as the kind of person on the right and people who identify as the kind of person on the left. It's all driven by identity, and we do the identity naturally because the identity is held in the brain also. It's like psychologically, but the brain. And then we have habits around identity. Habits happen automatically. So what happens is we live the identity through brain-based habits. But then what happens is the analytical prefrontal cortex says, no, I don't want to be broke anymore. I want money. I want to be an influencer. I want a new home. I want a new car. Oh, yeah, 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 I'm going to do it. And they never get there. Why? Like me 30 years ago, the identity pulls you right back down again into the initial identity.
And I think that's such a great way to put it because when we talk about the divide, and I agree with you, it's polarizing to the point where I could say, okay, this is a black pen,
No,
and
it's not.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
gray, or
Yeah.
it's blue, or
Right.
if you're colorblind, who knows what it looks like to you. But it's and again, that identity thing comes into play where if someone's against you, and it's as if they feel that their identity is being questioned,
It's
and all of a
exactly it, by the
sudden,
way. It's
yeah,
exactly. Their identity is being threatened, and their identity is their sense of safety and security. Boom, you nailed it.
and then that's when amygdala shows up and says, "Hi, here I am." And boy, oh boy, I have a nickname for amygdala. I call her Amy G, because sometimes it's like I know what you're doing here. I get it, but I don't think this is actually right what you're doing right now. But I understand why you're doing it. It's just the defense mechanism that we're gifted with. But sometimes I'm
Yeah.
like, I don't think you're on this one. But again, it's where you have to kind of pause and go, okay, where am I right now? Where are we? What is going on right now? And in this fast-paced world and all of that, with emotions and fear and identity issues and you name it, all these ingredients that get thrown into things because we're a complex existence, us humans. I think if you have that ability to just kind of like wait, it can help a lot as far as diffusing potential issues, you know, negative comments, arguments, you name it.
Can I add something there?
Please do.
Yeah, for example, speaking of identity, human beings need to grow up. We're a very young species. That's literally defensive. That's indefensible when you look at, are defensible when you look at the world that we live in, the things that we do. We destroy our water. We destroy each other. We fight for territory like animals. You look at trees. A tree doesn't set fire to the other side of the tree because it's all part of the one tree. The whole tree is going to burn down. We become a world where we identify with the identity which we've been born into and culturalized into us. A baby that's born Jewish doesn't say when they're 2 years old, nope, don't want to be Jewish anymore. That's not me. We learn the indoctrination through religion, through school, through society, through parents. We learn the indoctrination and then we live the indoctrination. We need to evolve beyond that to where, you know what? You burn your half of the tree down or try to burn my half down, the whole tree burns down. We're in this together. We need to work together on this. We might think differently, but at the core level, we are all the same. And I've got students all around the world, Italy to Tokyo to Sydney to Toronto to Lima. We're all the same. We all want the same thing. We all want health. We all want a good relationship, and we all want financial availability or security, but we fight like dogs, wild dogs, for property and identity and the preservation of the identity that we think we are, and we are not that. It's all manufactured in the head.
Yeah, and I see people argue and fight, and throughout history, we've seen all the battles over fictitious border, a piece of land, property. You said,
Yeah,
people, friendships. I need that Lambo. Okay, well, I'm not saying you don't need it. Maybe you need a car to do what you want to
yeah,
do. May not even be it, but maybe you do need a Lambo. I'm not here to judge. Whatever you want that gives you that sense of comfort and being, I'm not going to argue that. But I am also of the opinion of don't do harm to others for you
right,
to gain what you want because we don't need to do that. There's more than enough around for people. Yes, you have to do some effort to do it.
correct,
It's not a situation where you just show up and it's presented to you. But there's a reason for that. All have our gifts and our skills and all that to benefit all of us collectively. And if we could do that, I think about that a lot. If we, I don't want to dumb it down too much, but if we all work together a lot better, then a lot of things, innovations, technology or human life or just i- i- better quality of human life, health issues, challenge. I used to work in primary care, and I see the waiting room filled with people that were genuinely not well and having a real hard time of things, and hoping that this many milligrams of this and this million milligrams of that is going to make things better for them. And it's in many cases it's more of a get you to a stable state, but it's not going to improve things for you. And
100%.
ideally, it's like, our bodies are pretty resilient. If you feed it the right things, it's amazing what it'll do to repair itself. And I'm thankful for that because, it's like relying on external things to make you happy. If you can make yourself happy within with what you have, then it just, and again, that goes back to, I'm sure a lot of people run this too, where, they're successful and they're like, well, I can't buy that car or I can't buy that home because they're afraid of what their family will say. In Australia,
Yep.
I got a buddy in Australia. They call it tall poppy syndrome. And
Yeah.
basically, the poppies grow, and you don't want your poppy growing taller than everybody else because that we can't do that. Or like like we say in the States, we gotta knock you a notch down or something. It's like we can't have
Right.
you above. And that's such a limiting comment for people. I want people to be their absolute best because
Yeah.
we're all going to benefit from it if we are all supporting each other to figure out who is the optimum version of me. What does that look like? What do I need to do in order to tap into that so I can be that? Because I know it's going to benefit humanity. That's the
But the problem with that, hang on, the problem
Yep.
with that is that when you ask somebody the optimum version, everybody listening right now, they can only tell you the optimum version based upon their current identity. So I could be I've seen this. I have clients. One was a Harvard graduate and he couldn't make any money as a Harvard graduate. This was 25 years ago. So we can talk to him about the optimum identity and he understands intellectually and analytically, but subconsciously he's worthless in his mind because his dad told him that a lot as a kid or whatever it is. So then we hear you speaking and we say, yeah, I like analytically, I like that optimal identity. But why can't I do it? I can't do it because you've got that subconscious block getting in your way. It's like a vault door that won't even open to allow you to get to that optimum identity. This is why we hear. I was looking for a book on my desk, the book Think and Grow Rich. I read that in 1996. Something like, I don't know, 100 million people have bought the book. Well, I don't know, a large number of people. Why don't the majority of people who buy the book become rich? The reason why that book is content, but we can't get the content into our context, which is the subconscious identity. So no matter how long that book tells me or how much it tells me I can be rich, I can read it and go right on, but I can't do it because I am not that subconsciously. I didn't mean to interrupt, but a lot of people are stuck and they're like, why am I stuck? I'm a smart person. Why can't I figure this out? It's not analytical, it's subconscious.
So for people that are dealing with that and they're really stuck, is there, what's the first step that they can do to kind of help? Obviously, reaching out to you would be a great step, but what would be kind of the first step that you walk people through to help them kind of get a little bit clearer on, quite frankly, who they are?
Yeah, my podcast is actually in the top 1/10 of 1% of podcasts. I have millions and millions of downloads on my podcast. And the first 10 episodes are pretty foundational about habits and why our habits sabotage us, how the brain sabotages us, what the subconscious identity is, and basically talking about reprogramming the subconscious mind. You can find me on Apple or Spotify, Jim Fortin, Fortin, Transform Your Life from the Inside Out. And I named it that because everything comes from the inside to the out, but we learn to work backwards from the outside to the in. And then we wonder why we're not getting what we want. I could explain it here. Simple answers. You've got to learn to reprogram your subconscious mind and manage your brain-based habits. If you don't do that and do it well, you're going to keep being sabotaged when you were 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years old because the subconscious mind itself, mind and brain are separate, but the mind and the learning as a child was cemented in many, many years ago, and it runs on autopilot.
What I will do is I will, in the show notes, I will link those first few episodes and obviously to the show as well. As an amazing show. And
Thank you.
congratulations on reaching that level. I'm not shocked, by the way, that you
Thank
have,
you.
because it's so critically important, because people are starving for this. And let's feed them.
There's
Let's
there's so much garbage online though, and I'm sorry to say it that way, but there's so much, years ago. It was easier to reach people, but now we've become so anesthetized to the scroll culture. Dopamine, which by the way, Mark Zuckerberg and Elon Musk and these people own your brain, because the more you scroll, guess what? The longer you stay on the app and the more ads they can put in front of you and the more they can charge for their ad space. I advertise on those platforms. I know what it costs. It is not cheap. But there was an episode of 60 Minutes that was called Race to the Brainstem. It was a former Google employee showing you how they literally get you habituated to social media, and then you're just consumed with the news, which by the way has a negative spin for a reason. It activates the amygdala. But these companies hook you for the dopamine release, and you scroll and scroll and scroll because you're wanting that payoff that you get in Vegas. So we have to get out of that world and recognize we're being controlled. That's not some kind of Orwellian thing. It is what it is by where we are in the world. So I'm sorry to be so elongated in my answer. Yes, let's help people, but to your point, they have to take action. And if a person is programmed subconsciously not to take action, you can tell them all day long they've got to take action and they still won't take action. But for those of you listening that want more, take action even when it scares the hell out of you, because the fear is all an illusion anyway, and nothing will change until you change, period.
That's a great closing comment, Jim. So thank you so much. Again, I'll have all the links in the show notes on how people can reach you, including, your show and all of that, because I want people to be their best, because we all benefit
Yeah.
from it. So thank you again for your time today and all this amazing work you're doing.
Thank you, Michael. I appreciate the time today. Thank you, listeners, as well.